Hi, Mickey.
Hey, Bob.
Never gets old. How did we do? So how did we do?
I thought this was okay. It was better than last week.
You think so? I felt as if I had been sadly deficient.
You were fine, but
Mickey, at the New Republic, fine was a C. If you
yeah,
recall the way an editor would react to your stories, it was great piece was an A, good piece was a B, fine was a C, and then
I don't know.
the rest was like it doesn't run in the magazine. So, but
Um,
thanks anyway for
I
trying to.
reject these meritocratic categories.
Yeah, you're against,
I agree with Kate Boo's analysis of my pieces.
which is
She
what?
said, first time I ever met Kate Boo, she said, Mickey, I was reading your pieces. They had that pompous quality.
Did
I
she
said,
think?
oh, you mean authoritative? No, I mean pompous.
Wait, that was the first
is-
time you met her?
Yeah, this is a woman who uses her words precisely.
She was negging you, as they say in the pickup artist
No
biz.
shit. No
She
shit.
was negging you. That means she found you attractive. That's a good thing.
No.
You don't neg people you find unattractive,
Yeah,
Mickey. It's not
sometimes
worth
you
the
do.
trouble.
Sometimes you do. So I did have one. I went on a walk around the park, and I had one. I think I take issue with your analysis of my point about the Walter Shapiro's drop-off theory.
Well,
his
okay.
his theory is that mail-in voters tend to not bother to vote for the down ballot races like Congress and Senate. They just vote for president.
Right.
Non-mail-in voters tend to vote for the whole ballot. Republicans emphasized non-mail-in voters, in-person voting, so they lost the presidency, but they won the down ballot because the mail-in people didn't bother to vote. Okay.
I mean, specifically, he said the Democrats were encouraged to vote early, so it was even worse. I mean, it was they hadn't started paying attention yet, right? So it was early mail-in voting.
Yeah, but it was
accentuated the problem.
It was a strategic mistake of the Democrats. They sent their people, oh, we're going to vote against Trump, drop the ballot in the mail before they worried about the down ballot races.
Right.
So
right.
it was, and you said, well, how does that explain
Trump?
Why Trump did worse than the down ballot? And the answer, I think, is suppose there are 100 Trump voters and 120 Biden voters, okay? So Biden wins the general election, okay? Biden wins the top of the ticket. But all 100 Trump voters vote the down ballot, and only half the Biden voters. So all the Trump voters are straight ticket. There's no drop off in the Trump voters.
That's actually a good reply.
And if half the Biden voters don't vote the down ballot, then Trump wins the Republicans win the down ballot 100-60.
Mickey, it's a shame that this didn't occur to you until the Parrot room, and that the thousands of people who saw me seemingly vanquish you in this debate will never know
That's okay.
that you had this brilliant comeback. Because I think that actually makes sense. I see your point.
They're used to it.
We should mention it next week. It's a tribute to what a good sport I am that I just said that. I doubt I'll actually follow through, but anyway.
Well, thank you for being a good sport. Anyway, so I think the Shapiro theory is alive, but I don't. Somebody should run the numbers.
Well, it stands to reason that Republican. I mean, in what sense did like the senators outperform Trump? They won a higher percentage of the total votes cast for senator. It stands to reason that if Democrats voted less for senators,
right.
Period. Yeah, it totally makes sense.
I don't know how big the drop off was, and was it? I tried to do some half-assed calculations yesterday on some races in California, and they didn't bear out my theory. So, somebody who knows the territory, not Wasserman of Cook Report, needs to figure it out.
I really need more than usual a chocolate liqueur, so I'll be eating one while I'm off camera.
Can I play my song of the Trump era while you're doing this?
Totally.
Okay, well, here it is, I think. No, it's not. Hang on. Here it is.
Some lyrics would help.
Yeah, well,
I mean,
it takes a while for them to get to the lyrics, but hello. Oh, there's about to be a reference to four-dimensional chess.
that'll seal the case. As long as we're not talking
Here you
about
go.
Trump.
Okay, so
Is that meant ironically, Mickey, on your part, or is that ironic to think of Trump as playing four-dimensional chess?
yeah, of course. These are just a couple of folk pop singers, one of whom was famous years ago under the name Bright Eyes. His name's Connor Oberst, and the other is a woman who's apparently hot commercially called Phoebe Bridgers. And the song just has it has a couple of great lines. It has a chorus that goes, "I'm taking a shower at the Bates Motel." I think that's a good line. And then it has it has this reference to Trump and four-dimensional chess, and it has a really vicious line that I wanted to deny was intentional, but of course it is. Said, "That ghost is just a kid in a sheet." Okay? So don't worry about the ghost, it's just a kid in a sheet. But of course it's a kid in a sheet, so you should be worried. So pretty nasty.
Yeah.
And it's
You
not a
put a lot of
pro-Trump
thought
song.
into this.
Not a pro-Trump song, but it's a good song. And it's not viciously pro-Trump, anti-Trump. I mean, it's sort of lighthearted. It says, "Oh, these 4 years were just a mess. There was this messiness going on." So it lacks it probably won't please anti-Trumpers, but it's a good song.
So, Mickey, that reminds me of a song I wanted to play for you, and by way of giving you a little a musical riddle that you may not be able to answer. But first, I think I want to. This microphone is so weird. Well, I'll just turn the mic around to make sure it does it. This microphone does have the capacity to change the directional vectors. So there is a button I could push that would make it sensitive to sound coming from my computer. But since I don't know how to do that yet, I'm just going to turn the microphone around. Anyway, here is a song that I'm going to play, and then I'm going to ask you a question about it. I hope it'll come through.
It's not going to be Blue Oyster Cult again, is it?
Let's just hold off on that for a second.
Okay, it's going to be. So the answer is Blue Oyster Cult.
No, just wait. Can you hear this? Oh, wait. No, you can't. It's of course not. It's coming through my headphone. I'm such an idiot. Hold on. I'm going to fix that. Fix it right. Really super soon, I think. It gets better. Okay, maybe I've made my point. Now,
I would say that's Donovan
first,
Sutras.
Can you guess the name of that tune?
Am I right that it's Donovan?
Hold on. I just committed a technical snafu that rendered me incapable of understanding what you were saying, but that is fixed as of now. So what'd you say?
Am I right that that's Donovan?
No, you're not right that it's Donovan.
It's not Donovan?
No, you only have 3 guesses remaining.
I would say Tina Rirwin or whatever that group is.
Okay, here, first of all, I'll tell you, it is called a song called Baba Hanuman, and it has incredible meaning to me for a reason that I won't reveal even in the Parrot room, at least not yet. So that's part of the answer.
So my second guess was wrong too.
Yeah. Okay, I'll tell you who it is. It's Krishna Das. Have you ever heard of him? He does Hindu chant.
No.
You've never heard of Krishna Das? He does Hindu.
No.
Okay, fine. Anyway, he's famous throughout the meditation, circles. He will appear with the Sharon Salzbergs of the world and do these chants, these, and so on. Anyway, he started out with Blue Oyster Cult. That's a little trivia thing. For a brief time, Jeff Cagle, then a student at State University of New York at Stony Brook, was the band's lead singer, but he quit. That's him.
Really?
Yeah. Blue Oyster. He started out at Blue Oyster Cult, and he's now Krishna Das. Many, many people have heard of Krishna Das.
That's a hell of a trivia item.
Thank you. Thank you. It only occurred to me recently that, but that's my news. I feel that I'm not holding up my end of the conversation.
No, that's okay. Anyway, the song I played was called Dylan Thomas. Don't ask why it's called Dylan Thomas. There's a reference to the poet Dylan Thomas in it, but it's a hell of a song.
Now, Mickey, before we forget, I guess I should deliver on what I promised for the Parrot Room, which is to give Jeffrey Toobin career advice.
And I had a point to make about Toobin's.
Well, you start.
Well, I said that he was sort of they'd invested a lot of energy into building up his brand. He's a familiar face, so they will be reluctant to get rid of him. But I neglected to point out that there are literally hundreds of court watchers who could do the job just as well.
Sure.
And one of them is Dahlia Lithwick of Slate, who's way to my left, and her writing seems way to my left, but she's a fantastic court watcher.
Dahlia is great.
And she's a compelling personality and would be so much better than Jeffrey Toobin. So
But didn't she kind of choose to step away from Slate? She doesn't still write for Slate, right? I took that to mean she was kind of tired of the game, if it even happened.
I just read an article about why Trump's latest thing is so horrible, and I think it was on Slate. Might have been somewhere else.
Dahlia is great. She's super great. And it's funny. I was thinking that, like, if while he's under suspension at CNN, he is replaced by a woman, he ain't never getting that job back. Seriously, because a guy with, now that the past Me Too issues have arisen, have resurfaced, the idea of taking a woman's job and giving it to him, not going to happen.
Right.
But I don't know who did replace him at CNN. Maybe it wasn't. I don't know. I
have a Jeffrey Toobin anecdote that might be sexist.
Then definitely.
Tell me if this is a bad behavior. In the green room before they go on a show, he asks a woman friend of mine, "So, what's your take on this?" And she tells him her take. And then when they get on the show, the host says, "So, Jeffrey, what's your take on this?" And he steals this woman's take.
So the question is, would he have done that to a man?
No, first, is it bad behavior anyway? I think it's pretty bad behavior.
It's bad behavior, period. I don't know if it's sexist.
And then the second is it sexist? I don't know. It's probably hierarchical. In other words, he thought he could get away with it because he's Jeffrey Toobin.
Why is it? Well, I think I know the answer. I mean, and I don't know Jeffrey Toobin. I'm not suggesting that that's typical, but I have noticed that really a disproportionate number of people who attain great prominence are assholes.
I don't think he's an asshole. He's hierarchical, and he will know who the big shots are in the room and who he should suck up to.
Well, that's assholic.
It's sort of standard operating procedure in these parts.
Well, maybe in the circles you hang out in. I'm from Middle America, Mickey. American values remain strong here.
A guy who I think has those values.
Middle American?
Well, we talked about this before. Guys who are completely at home with normal people and not playing that game. Sean Wilentz or Joe Klein.
They seem very different to me. I met Joe Klein, really liked him. I mean, Sean Wilentz seemed fine.
They can both go to a truck stop and hang out. But go ahead, sorry.
That surprises me about Sean Wilentz because, of course, his most famous appearance is, I think we've discussed this, is as a witness at the Clinton impeachment hearings who struck everyone in Middle America as an obnoxious, effete academic.
Right. Although he is, he may be that too, but he's an obnoxious, effete academic who can hang out at a truck stop in a totally normal, comfortable way. although I was very disappointed. He has some relation to Bob Dylan. He's like Bob Dylan's executor or he's the official biographer of Bob Dylan or the official curator of Bob Dylan or interpreter. And I asked him my big Bob Dylan question. He couldn't answer, which is why did Bob Dylan fire Tom Wilson?
Was Tom Wilson a producer?
Tom Wilson was the producer who produced everything up to and including Like a Rolling Stone. And then he was fired the day, that day that they finished Like a Rolling Stone. He wasn't there the next day. And why did Dylan fire him? Since Tom Wilson produced all of Dylan's magical works. And it was downhill from there, although from a very high peak.
And who's the guy who has a story about how when they were taping Like a Rolling Stone, they asked him to fill in at organ, and he didn't really know how to play organ?
Al Cooper.
And he did the famous, well, he kind of knew, but that wasn't his main instrument.
He was a guitarist, yeah.
And he did that, the
famous riff.
Yeah.
It's weird, yeah. Al Cooper. It's a great story.
And they and was it Dylan who supposedly said, yeah, turn that part up? Tom
Wilson's the guy who led him into the session, and Dylan said, turn that part up, and Tom Wilson supposedly said, why? He's a guitarist. He was just sitting in.
That's grounds for firing.
Well, that could be it. That could have been it. But anyway, it's weird. I was listening to Like a Rolling Stone the other day, and aside from the riff, Al Cooper's playing is really annoying. It's like not very good. Why is it there? It's like crap, crap, crap. Then it's fantastic riff. Then crap, crap, crap. So anyway, but it's a great story and a great riff.
One good riff will get you a long way. So wait.
You have to deliver on your Jeffrey Toobin-ism.
Well, this is probably crazy, but I mean, in terms of best-selling books he could write that would be a story of redemption, has anybody written a good book on pornography addiction?
Probably.
I doubt. Well, name it. Name it. What best-selling book on pornography addiction?
It's not my area. I can find out.
So you say.
But how do we know?
Look, we're in the Parrot room, Mickey.
We don't know that he's addicted. We don't know that he's addicted to pornography.
He's addicted to something closely related.
He might have been thinking of Justice Ginsburg.
Mickey.
He might have been thinking of Justice Ginsburg's opinions. I mean, who knows what he was thinking?
That reminds me, this memo surfaced of who was it? Was it Klain? It was Ron Klain. Did you see that? I think it was Ron Klain. The memo about they were doing testimony prep for Justice Ginsburg when she was at her Senate hearings for confirmation.
Right.
And did you see this memo that Ron Klain wrote? Like, she has this problem and this problem and this problem, and she refuses to take our advice and blah, 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 kind of. It's funny. Huh. I hope I'm not wrong. I think it was Ron Klain.
But so what? There's no evidence that he's addicted to pornography.
How do you explain what happened? I mean,
it's not behavior I normally engage in, so I can't explain it. Except I tried to explain it last week, which is that
Mickey,
when you're talking about the law, you desperately want to think about sex.
Mickey, it's the Parrot room. We can speak freely. If you have a problem, get it off your chest.
No,
I'm here to help.
No, I explained that law libraries are inherently erotic because you're incredibly horny when you're sitting around with these boring law books.
Mickey.
So maybe that was, but I don't think it was. Pornography is a big leap.
I don't think he had been looking at law books. Well, I mean, what do you think was? It's just so weird.
I'm the only guy I cannot find pornography on the web. Okay, I've never found it. Okay, it's not there as far as I'm concerned.
Okay.
All right.
Maybe it's not.
Anyway.
Did you go straight to cam girls?
I don't even know what cam girls is, Bob.
I had never heard the term until the Hunter Biden thing. We've talked about this.
No, we didn't talk about cam girls.
We didn't?
I've heard about...
Didn't you say that Hunter Biden supposedly built up these huge credit card bills with cam girls are, it's live, it's on a camera.
Oh, yeah.
Things you ask them to do.
I saw a bad movie about that.
Let's see, it's all coming back.
About the
so anyway,
servitude.
Well, I don't have a theory other than that the guy was out of control in some sense. What makes us out of control? Addictions make us out of control. Well,
it was certainly addictive and self-indulgent, as it were, behavior, and sort of he thought he
Right.
could
I
get
mean,
away
it's
with
like,
it. But
okay, just a thought. Look,
failure to control your impulses. But I don't. Do you want to read that book even? I would love Jeff Toobin, an honest view of his life.
you would?
Sure, this guy seemed important, so I sucked up to him.
Then I stole this woman's idea in the
cheated on
green
my
room.
wife here, and then I cheated on my wife there, and
Yeah,
blah blah blah.
that would be fascinating.
Apparently my grandmother wrote a similar book
About cheating.
No, I don't think she cheated because she split up from her husband. She had an active social life, and apparently wrote a brutally honest and not necessarily flattering biography that bizarrely became a hit in Austria. Who knew?
My wife, whose last name is O'Neill, is related to George and Nina O'Neill. Do you know who they are?
No.
They wrote the highly influential book Open Marriage.
Really?
Yeah.
Don't read it.
So, okay, you don't like my is there any other story of redemption that you can imagine him telling? I don't see. I mean, how does he write a book that's not a story of redemption?
Redemption is totally possible. We've talked about Dave Weigel, who didn't have that much to redeem, but he had to leave a couple of jobs under
that was
circumstances, and he redeemed himself by pure hard work. Pure hard work will redeem you. Everybody loves Dave Weigel now. I love Dave Weigel.
That was a different thing, Mickey.
Yeah, of course it was a different thing, but I'm just talking about there are heartening stories of redemption everywhere.
I'm not saying you can't possibly even read. I'm talking about, a book that is a story of redemption. This is a common thing to do when you're in these straits.
Yeah, that's why I don't. Oh, I see. So I don't think you should do that.
Okay.
And then I hit bottom. Gee, I wonder when he hit bottom.
That's a great chapter. Okay, so we're about a month away from your paying me big money because he's not on CNN yet.
Okay. I won some big money from our Russian friend.
From Nikita?
From Nikita. He bet me $50. He said Trump would win.
Nikita did or Aryeh?
Nikita did. I'm hesitant to take his money, in part because it'll be in rubles.
Take his money. Take his money.
In part because I figure he may have less money than I do.
No, take his money because, I didn't realize how far a dollar will get you in Russia. And the money he's making from the Non-Zero Foundation, he's got he's like an oligarch by now.
Well, but to pay me $50, that's like $100 million in Russia, right?
Pocket change.
Okay. Okay. Well, I can't collect until it's final, as you know.
Somebody, I think I said this, but somebody said we should have Nikita in the Parrot Room.
Yeah, sure.
He's a very entertaining.
He's a charismatic person.
He's the finest oligarch I know.
They're saying that the Dominion theory is a QAnon theory. I got a message from somebody in the break. That would explain a lot. How did this theory come from out of nowhere? QAnon needs to come up with some new theories.
Now, was the Dominion theory explicitly refuted by the Department of Homeland Security when it issued that statement saying this was the most secure election ever?
I thought that was just refuting all of them. Maybe I'm wrong. The Dominion theory doesn't quite make sense because it's like one case here, one case there, one case wasn't even Dominion. It just was not. It's not enough to explain throwing an election, and it'll be disproved by the recount. So on with the recount.
Yeah, no, it's like listening to this, getting all this stuff via the Bannon podcast is an amazing experience because he'll bring on some guy who's sounds credible, and he's had these people do the analysis on the stats involving Dominion, and it's a open and shut case.
He must have been on the hammer and the scorecard too, right? That's the other conspiracy theory.
I don't listen to all of his. I mean, it would be too bad for my mental health to listen to all of his podcasts because he's doubled up. He's doing an afternoon. He's spending 4 hours on podcasts every day or something, counting the commercials. I mean, you got to, this guy is in the bunker. I mean, he is It's amazing. He's a fascinating person.
I never quite understood what drove him.
Well, that's the question.
I thought he was being driven by ideology, but then he sort of got kicked out of the White House, and he kept on going. He's like the Energizer Bunny. He doesn't stop.
Well, why does that make you think he's not driven by ideology?
I guess that's right.
But he pursued his ideology. The next thing he tried to do is knit together European ethno-nationalists into a network of European ethno-nationalists.
I guess
didn't seem to work out very well. Then he teamed up with this guy Guo, who, by the way, may get extradited finally in a Biden administration, but who is under indictment in China. This billionaire guy who now bankrolls Bannon. And has got this rap song about freeing China that Bannon now plays on all of his outros. But he's still true to an ideology of sorts. I
guess you seem to be saying he was just scrounging for a pardon at this point.
Well, I think that's got to be on his mind. I don't think that's all it was. Okay. I think I haven't totally figured him out because he's clearly in some respects dishonest. He can't believe all the shit he says is true. And yet, have you seen, I think it's called American Dharma, the Errol Morris documentary about him?
No.
You should watch it. It's on Netflix or something.
And it's also true that if he'd been running the campaign, Trump probably would have won.
Well, I'm telling you, if Trump pulls this thing out, it will have been from following the Bannon strategy. Bannon laid this out long ago. We declare victory at midnight. In fact, he's still pissed at Trump for declaring victory at 2:30 a.m. instead of midnight. Seriously. Says that may have lost us the election. You had to get in right after Biden. I don't know.
Yeah, that seems crazy. But we could ask Josh Green. You should have Josh Green on your show.
Josh Green was a tough get. He was on Blogging Heads once. What's he doing now? He's a pretty astute political observer.
Yeah, even though he.
Did he write a piece about
even though he publicized his book with a highly relevant theme that turned out to be bullshit? He publicized his book with an anecdote that Ann Coulter had written a speech and then praised it on the web as the greatest thing since the Magna Carta. You there?
Mm-hmm.
And it turned out that that was probably from. It turned out that's bullshit. Coulter had written a draft of a speech that had been rejected. They used Steve Miller's draft, and she was praising Steve Miller's draft. So why can't she do that? It's similar to John Meacham's current predicament.
He just got in trouble for that.
Which could be the same thing. The stories did not say Meacham wrote the speech. In fact, if Meacham had written a speech for Biden, this is Biden's speech where he sort of first speech as president-elect, which he gave, I think, Saturday night. It would have been a much better speech if Meacham had written it. Meacham's a beautiful writer. This was a speech that could have been written by an algorithm. There was like nothing to it. There was one good line: the era of demonization, the grim era of demonization,
is over.
Yes, I think it's over. I think he said it's over.
That was the line.
I get the grim era of demonization and the rancid feast of condemnation confused. The rancid feast of condemnation is what Ben Wattenberg said America had come to.
How long ago was that?
Long ago, like 1978, maybe.
Because he died like 10 years ago.
Yeah, well, it was the Carter era.
I was on his show, Think Tank, twice, his PBS show. And one time I made the mistake of eating a huge burrito, like 45 minutes in advance. I was like, I just couldn't even stay awake. I just was very alert and lively and articulate for about like 12 minutes. And then just bad
He was a
timing.
nice guy. For whatever political criticisms you have.
Why can you?
Well, go ahead.
I was just going to ask you if you have a theory as to why I find John Meacham annoying. Is there something obviously annoying about him? I think it's ideological. What is your take?
He's moralizing. He's talking to you about saving your soul, and maybe your idea of your soul doesn't quite jibe with Meacham's, and Meacham sort of assumes that he has the right way to save America's soul. He's also totally tethered to the civil rights movement. So his No, but that things have moved on beyond the civil rights movement. If your constant touchstone for morality is the civil rights movement, you're not going to get a lot of what's going on now.
In what way? What's
Well, the welfare debate of the '90s was not about giving African Americans their civil rights. It was about dealing with dysfunction, perceived dysfunction in the African American
well,
community.
yeah, but that's not going on now either. What's going on now is BLM. It's in the other direction from your cherished
maybe
debate.
Maybe it's come back a bit, but there's a counter reaction to BLM, and is Meacham going to say that the counter reaction to BLM is the same as turning fire hoses on little kids in Alabama? Probably, but it's not true. It's a much more complicated issue now. There's gray on both sides.
I think my issue with him is that he manages to every once in a while be a spokesman for the blob. I think appraised closely.
Well, he probably sincerely believes the blob.
He probably sincerely believes it all.
But when I was at Newsweek, he was supposed to be up for a job in the Bush State Department. But he's an incredibly competent guy.
They all are. All the people
writer.
We resent are competent. That's why we resent them, Mickey.
I guess that's right.
Name an incompetent person.
He's the guy at Newsweek who would stay up all night to rewrite a piece.
I would have been that
routinely. person. Routinely. Anyway.
I did stay up all night to close a Time magazine cover story.
And the other good for you. The other good thing I have to say about him, he's been very supportive of me. B, during the John Edwards scandal, bizarrely, when I wrote a thing saying, look, all these rumors about these candidates are interesting, but if the John Edwards rumor is true, it destroys his candidacy because his whole candidacy was based on his faithfulness to his wife. And if he was unfaithful to her, he's over. And bizarrely, I got a supportive note or comment or something from Meacham, which I didn't expect and was very grateful for. And the answer I now learned is, I think, that the Edwards story was shopped to Newsweek before I found out about it. And they turned it down, but they obviously knew it and suspected it was true. Maybe they couldn't 100% nail it down enough to meet their standards, but so Meacham knew it was true. So he was being supportive
Speaking of John Edwards, one of our patrons writes, this patron's username is writes in the comment section, Mickey, I
can guess their password.
It's what was John Podesta's password? Password 1? I think that's the email account that was hacked and arguably lost the election for Hillary. Congratulations, John. And then they sent the fishy email to the guy in charge of cybersecurity for them. And he said, yep, click on it. And then he later claimed that he meant don't click on it when he said click on it. Yeah, that's usually the way I put it.
It was being ironic.
On it. I don't think so. Anyway, this person writes, Mickey, I have long surmised you are one of the biggest contributors to Hillary's failed bid when you refrained from scooping the Edwards affair early on. I'm not sure what that means. Do you know what that means?
No, early on, the Edwards thing, it changed. I think early on it helped Hillary to have Edwards in the race. No, sorry. It was somehow I don't know. Somehow it was pro-Obama. The publicizing the Edwards thing was somehow turned pro-Obama because I know Tom Edsall also he didn't write about it, but he believed it, and one of his kids was working for Obama, so I think that sort of dovetailed, and it was true, of course. So he was right to believe it, but it sort of flipped at some point. At some point, Edwards was splitting the anti-Hillary vote in a way that hurt Obama. And if you got Edwards out of there, the anti-Hillary vote would all go to Obama. I think that was it.
Tom Edsall is a great phenomenon because he's like, I think older than me, and yet he has has really kind of come into his own at the New York Times within like the last few years. Am I imagining that?
Well, he's come in his own several points in his life.
But he's significantly
he was a
older
big deal.
than me, right?
He's old. He was a big deal at the New York Review of Books, then at the Washington Post. Then he wrote a very good book about white resentment decades before its time, with his wife, I believe. His problem is there was a period when this wasn't true, and it's not so much true now. There's some people I just can't get through their prose. It's like dense, and it just hits my brain the wrong way, and I can't.
That reminds me, a commenter said something about Leon Wieseltier that we'll get to. Go ahead.
Anyway, and Edsall's he went through a period where it was like that, ready for the New York Review, I think, and then all of a sudden his prose became great and easily readable, and then now I think it's gone a little back in the other direction.
It's funny. I was just giving a young writer feedback yesterday, saying basically, never imagine that you're writing for the New York Review of Books unless you're actually writing for the New York Review of Books, because nobody else wants your writing to read like that.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
It's almost an aphorism.
Yeah. So he took it well. So I had read something he wrote. So here's Chris L., a patron, asks, in which episode do you explain why it's wrong to call a lie a lie? You know, we both complained about the media calling Trump's lies lies. Is your argument that Trump's lies aren't lies because of what exactly? I think we agree, right? I mean, or do we agree? I mean, a lie by definition, well, certainly you and I had this discussion, Mickey. A lie
right,
by definition involves intent to deceive, which means you consciously know it's untrue. And my view of human nature generally leads me to believe people often are dishonest without realizing. In other words, it is tactical, but they don't even know it at a conscious level. And certainly Trump is a total mystery to me. What's going on in his conscious mind?
Well, every con man believes their own con, right? So that dovetails with
the best con man believe.
It's been bothering me lately because Trump has been making assertions in court, and the New York Times has been saying they're a lie or untruthful or false. And well, that's what the court suit is about. Let's let the court decide. We'll know soon enough what the court thinks is true or not. I mean, the Times has every right to say it's a lie and false, but it just seems weird to prejudge things that way. I mean, you know.
Well, here's a subtle semantic question. The New York Times routinely refers to Trump's, most lately, his claim that the election was stolen or fraudulent as false, which I object to. I object to that characterization. And not that I think, it's almost certainly true that it's false. I just don't think it's the place of a repertorial journalism to assert the falseness unless you've exhaustively established it is, which you almost can't do. Now the Washington Post says either unfounded or baseless, which I think is better than false. But my question to you is, well, A, how much better? But B, is baseless different from unfounded? I don't think either of those quite gets done the job that I want done. But are they acceptable to you, baseless and unfounded?
No. Well, let's find out if it's baseless and unfounded.
Well, right. But see, I think they could. I think you could take.
So you could just seemingly unfounded. I find the word seem does a lot of work for you.
Well, I was thinking they could say that unfounded means Trump has failed to establish the foundation. Whereas baseless, it's harder to even make that argument about. Baseless seems to say there is no base. Whereas unfounded seems to mean it hasn't yet.
Right. Yeah. But why say, why don't you say Trump's claim and let the reader figure out if the claim is.
Yeah, we agree. And here's the thing. Just one more thing on this. It isn't just that lie is technically incorrect or that false is technically incorrect, since you don't know for sure.
Right.
It's that these things, in my view, undermine the credibility of the newspapers themselves, certainly in the eyes of the Trump supporters. And I think it's a problem for the country when there's no one main media outlet that both tribes trust. And
I agree. And one of the things on my list is do we get the Washington Post back now? And this is a Tucker Carlson theme. I mean, if you read their lead on an election when the race was called, said legions of voters led by African Americans rebelled against Trump's bullying tactics and elected Joe Biden. It was like a lead I used to write when I was a member of SDS in college. 4,000 angry feet marched in Post Office Square to protest Lyndon Johnson's genocidal war in Vietnam. Mm-hmm. It was that kind of ridiculous writing. And okay, that's Biden won now. Do we get to stop that? No, I think it's too ingrained. I think now people now think that's what being a reporter is about.
Well, I will say this. I think. First of all, Glenn Greenwald was making the point on the Useful Idiots podcast the other day. He was a guest. That the problem with because he was talking to Matt Taibbi, who wrote a book called Hate Inc., I think, which is about the problem with the media we're describing, and how the incentives lead them in the direction they've gone in, and so on. Glenn was saying, the problem is, when something arises, whether like Hunter Biden or like this, the election, the claims being made about election fraud, there is no one there's no big major newspaper you trust to really go after it with the actual aim of getting to the bottom of it. And I agree. Now, I do think
there are individual reporters you trust.
There are.
Not many of them.
I also think that my ordering of credibility is that the Wall Street Journal, the reported section, is better than either the Post or the Times, and the Post is better than the Times. The Wall Street Journal opinion section is loopy, but
the Post is pretty bad.
The Post is pretty bad.
The worst story I've seen recently was the Washington Post story on Trump's speech at Mount Rushmore, where he studiously avoided saying anything racial. It was about it was an attack on Antifa, I think, and it was it talked about the statues, but it completely avoided any racial terms, and they completely presented it as another racist speech where he allies with the Ku Klux Klan, basically. Their article was obviously written in advance, and they just weren't going to change it because of what happened actually in reality.
Yeah, that would take too long. But I will say that, if you compare, so the Post did a few days ago, a piece looking into the main claims being made by the Trumpists about voting irregularities. And it was pretty useful, I thought. What the Times did was, did you see this piece? We called secretaries of state in every state or something, election.
Yeah, that seemed like bullshit.
That seemed like total bullshit. And then, of course, that's what they generally say. If you ask somebody, are you running a clean operation? They usually say yes.
Our products suck.
Yeah. The Post piece was more useful. Anyway, something I just heard from a source I can't name, but this is reliable information, is that some, I guess, former reporters from the Wall Street Journal are trying to gather money, and they're talking to people in Silicon Valley. And that money would bring its own biases probably, but to start exactly what we're describing, the pitch would be
a newspaper,
an actual newspaper. That's right. That's right.
Talking to Silicon Valley is the wrong place to start.
Well, you got to get money somewhere. Who doesn't have an agenda?
It's a good question. You don't need that. You need a lot of money. I don't know. There have to be I'm told this, I harp on this all the time. There have to be a lot of old generation reporters like Maggie Haberman who were chafing under the new, quasi propagandistic attitude at the Times and the Post.
She seems an enthusiastic participant in the propaganda to me.
I'd say half.
She wrote a piece once. I wish I could find it. Was it was at least a couple of years ago. It was at the beginning it was during the crystallization of the resistance. And it was ostensibly reportorial, and she listed a series of things that Trump said. And after every one, she just wrote, there was a paragraph that just said, "This is false." And some of the things were like not falsifiable. They were like the kinds of claims like there's no way of establishing this.
See, I see that's her. That
was her rebelling,
sucking up.
It was her reductio ad absurdum, or
that
what?
Was her sucking. That was her sucking up to the woke forces.
What's the difference?
She doesn't write her own pieces. Okay.
Ooh.
She reports.
Sounds like
them.
We have a scoop here. Elaborate.
No, it's well known that she's not a writer. She reports the pieces, and the other byline on the story will be the one who's written it. If it's a sole byline, she probably wrote it. But if it's a dual byline, the other person probably wrote it. She gets the information. She more than pulls her weight. You know, she's the one who gets the scoop. There are a lot of that's the old Newsweek system. One guy gets the scoop, the other person writes it up. I mean,
it's the old. Rewrite was the old newspaper model.
Right. So there's nothing inherently wrong with it. But putting it that way might have been the idea of an editor or a writer, not her. The second is she gets into fights on Twitter all the time with people on the left who say, you know, why did you report this? And she'll say, because I'm a reporter, I report what happened. I don't care if it helps her cause or not. So her self-conception is as a reporter, not an activist. And there are other people you're going to point to who are like that. And yeah, they should start a newspaper of their own. I don't know who would give them the money.
So here's my question: is there a bottom-up approach to this, like a network of Substack newsletters, like we find? But see, no, we would not be good at this anyway.
The Substack is not going to pay people money to report the boring news that sometimes goes one way or the other. They want to hear.
No. I'm not saying get money from Substack. I mean, you got
no, but he make money on Substack. Taibbi does not make money on Substack by presenting a balanced, accurate account. No, he makes money by pursuing his hobby horses.
No, but there's a second model that you could call the let the chips fall where they may model. Right. It's like, I think of you and me as writing opinionated stuff, but I think we are more capable than some, not than all, but more capable than some of conceding points from the other side. And I think we both work hard not to write propaganda. We try to do honest arguments, right?
You can see the points from the other side in paragraph 3 of 4. Like,
well, that's an improvement over what you...
stick that in the armpit of the piece.
Okay. Poo-poo my idea.
No, but I don't see myself as an objective reporter at all. So
I'm not saying you have to, but I do think I would like to think more about the idea of like I got an email from Peter Beinart a few days ago. I got a reply. But it was about, should we plug each other's newsletters? Well, sure. I'll get back to him. Yeah, let's do that. But there's a version of that that's that's a little more systematic, that starts creating real synergy among like-minded newsletters. Now maybe it's ideological. So forget this part about some kind of trans ideological thing. Just like in your case, imagine like 10 newsletters put out by crazy immigration restrictions.
Well, that's the Substack vision, which is eventually these newsletters coagulate into.
Well, so they say, but has anybody done it? The only time.
No, but the night is young for them.
Well, I'd like to. I'm not aware of any tools they provided that make it easy.
I'm not sure it works. Why? You know, if you have five websites charging $10 a month, and you put them together, people aren't going to want to spend $50 a month for them. They're going to want to spend $30, so you've lost $20 in the bargain. I mean, I don't understand the economics of it.
Wait, say that again.
If you have 10 newsletters of like-minded people, 5 newsletters of like-minded people, they're each charging $10. Total, they get $50. If they combine in a magazine, are they going to get $50? No.
Well,
nobody's going to pay $50 for any magazine.
For starters,
but people don't notice when the little ones add up.
Okay, but for starters, don't skip to that phase and just do a thing where you do the reciprocal links that, it's like 10 of you get together and say, the deal is, let's try to send people to each other. And if we do it more or less symmetrically, That'll be better than where we will each get more traffic than if all of them had just gone somewhere else from our newsletter, right? I mean, there is synergy here to be tapped in principle.
Well, okay, that makes sense, but it doesn't. It's the joint. It's coagulating into one organization that I don't quite understand.
I think there's kind of a spectrum of coagulation, and theoretically, it could work at any place. Anyway, we can.
I just want an office I can go to. I guess I will never have that again, will I?
I don't know. I haven't had an office. Actually, I have an office. I have a great office in New York. I just can't. It's a wonderful office. It was next to Cornell West's office. We were hallmates. But now he's gone and I'm gone. But my office is still there. My stuff is in it.
He's people say he's a nice guy.
He is a nice guy. First time he met me, he hugged me. No other guy's ever done that. And said, "Hello, brother."
I had a WeWork space, which I loved, but the pandemic killed it.
Plus, didn't WeWorks go under or something?
No. They bounced their founder, but they're still trying to make a go of it.
Boy, he seemed like a loon.
Yeah, it's a great deal.
How much did it cost? How much did it cost?
$400 a month.
And so
a nice desk with coffee and in a nice surroundings.
But do you even keep the desk, or do you just go to whatever desk is open?
No, it's a hot desk. You go to whatever desk. But this was an underused WeWork, so there were hundreds of available desks.
And they got coffee.
Yeah, but they also have central air conditioning, which blows the coronavirus all around. So screw that. Can we talk about this effort to blacklist Trumpers? Something that has maybe more interest to me than it does to you.
Yeah, I didn't know about it. You'll have to explain it.
Well, AOC wrote a piece. AOC wrote a tweet saying, "Let's not forget all the people who abetted Trump and helped Trump, and I suspect let's record what they did before, I suspect there'll be a lot of mass deleting going on, okay?" Now, that itself isn't that bad. She's not calling for anybody to be fired. She's just saying, let's keep an archive of what they wrote. That seems fair enough. But then some other guy who was apparently on one of the losing Democratic campaigns said, let's compile a list to make sure that none of these people ever draw a paycheck again, who took a paycheck from Trump, sort of. And that was like an actual blacklist. And he got a lot of shit, and he's taking it down now.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the blacklist is dead. And as Ryan Lizza pointed out in his piece, not only did the Iraq War people survive their mistakes, and the Libya people haven't even gotten shit for their mistake, but the closeness of the vote shows that they're not in such bad odor. I mean, Trump barely lost, so are you really going to persecute somebody who got 48% of the vote? I don't think 47% of the vote. I don't think so. Anyway, it looks like the blacklists are dead. Maybe I'm wrong. I still won't be able to show my face around here, but, Well,
I mean, what does it matter? It's like you're notorious anyway. I mean, it's not like we need to put your name on a list. I mean, right. I mean, in other words, don't people know who so what you're saying is the idea of a blacklist is to put pressure on people who would not normally discriminate against these people to discriminate. It's what's called a meta sanction, right? You sanction people who fail to join you in your sanctions.
That's a good point. And they've also gone far, the Lincoln people are just complete out of control thugs. They're going after General Motors because they use the same law firm that is also working for Trump. Like, that's
the Lincoln Project people are so insidious because, they're mostly neocons on foreign policy, right?
I'm not, Rick Wilson maybe, but I don't think Steve Schmidt necessarily. Maybe he is. He worked for McCain.
Wait, wasn't he a McCain guy?
Yeah. Well,
How can you not be a neocon and be a McCain guy?
What about, isn't Murphy associated with the Lincoln Project? I guess he was.
Yeah, him I don't know. But wait, who's the first guy you named? Before Schmidt. Just now,
yeah.
like this moment.
Yeah, there's Rick Wilson.
Biden test. Man fails Biden test.
Rick Wilson, Steve Schmidt.
Rick Wilson.
Okay, Stuart Stevens and Mike Murphy are the ones I mentioned. I'm not sure the extent to which Murphy is formally in the Lincoln Project.
I think it was Rick Wilson that somebody just dug up some 2010
Right, that was an unbelievable quote.
Islamophobic tweets.
But that he could have just been bullshitting in that tweet too about how the best position for a Islamist is a bullet through the head or something.
Oh yeah, I often joke about that.
It was Rashida Tlaib who unearthed it, and it was retweeted by Ann Coulter. So it was like the Tlaib Coulter axis reasserting itself.
A rare bit of Tlaib Coulter synergy.
Less rare. You will not find, or maybe it was Ilhan Omar. It was one of those two. Somebody in the squad. There's you will not find Ann attacking the squad that much, actually.
Speaking of synergy between left and Trumpists, somebody just alerted me to a piece in the New York Times fleshing out this idea, which we had heard, but that Trump's recent mysterious personnel changes in the Defense Department are in fact designed to withdraw troops from Afghanistan, notwithstanding the opposition of the blob. It's a New York Times piece. I think it just showed up.
It doesn't make any sense because if we draw, the next president will just stick them back in again. So what's the point?
Well, no, I don't think so. I think if you've got them out of Afghanistan, what president? I mean, I guess if absolute disaster ensued and people were being killed by the thousands, but let me just go to this tweet.
If nothing happened, you would the Biden would stick them back in. If it's a disaster and the Taliban win, it's too late. Can't stick them back in.
No, if nothing, no, I don't think having troops in other countries is so popular that Biden would say, "Hey, let's stick them in a country they're not in, where everything is going fine." I don't agree.
But it won't be going fine.
Well, that's my point. It has to. If it goes south, then yeah. But so it'll
go 20 degrees south. It won't go 100 degrees south.
Piece from today by Jennifer Steinauer in the New York Times. Mr. Trump is scrambling to make it so, meaning withdrawing American troops, aided by conservative anti-war forces who see it not only as good policy, but also as a linchpin to any future he may seek in politics. So that's, he's failed to do much of anything as president, but this would be something.
There are two other theories of why he's decapitated the Defense Department.
Why?
One is because he wants to stage a coup, and the other is David Ignatius's theory that he wants to declassify these documents that he claims vindicate him with respect to Putin, and that Haspel and everybody else in the bureaucracy doesn't want to declassify because it will compromise sources and methods, and that's what the fight is about.
That's the theory floated on the Bannon podcast, which may add credence to it.
I didn't think that David Ignatius and Bannon would be.
I don't mean they had Ignatius on. I just mean that was what they were talking about.
No, but they're both floating the same theory.
Right.
Ignatius was more the military brass are heroically resisting this irresponsible attempt by Trump, but he's more of an old school reporter, so he didn't quite come out and say it like that. Anyway, so I guess I think the blacklists are dead. I think that was fast. They died before I could even get like a column attacking them. So annoying.
Maybe that was to deprive you of your column. Maybe that's part of the conspiracy.
Probably. I had one more thing that I realized with the Georgia primary, that the flash of maybe obvious insight, which is everybody talks about direct mail-in balloting, but we don't want harvesting. Some people like me say mail-in ballots okay, but harvesting is bad. Harvesting is where you go around and gather ballots from people and turn them in all at once. And the question is, do you throw out the ones that you think are for your opponent? And do you help them fill out the ballot? Do you sort of somehow coerce them? There's no real safeguards. Even if the signature is real, who filled out the ballot and under what circumstances? But there is no way to have mail-in ballots if you have these drop boxes and without having harvesting, because who knows? You can't tell who has pulled up in the middle of the night and dropped 100 ballots in there. So drop boxes equal harvesting.
Well,
can't have the drop boxes without harvesting.
Why doesn't the same problem afflict mailing them in generally? Because they would all be dropped off in the same mailbox, and
Well,
that
it
would be
does.
distinguishing mark? Oh, okay.
No, mail-in ballots also equal harvesting. The only way around it is to force you to go into a center and drop them off with a.
Because see, when I was thinking about this post-election fight and getting worried, I was thinking, I mean, mail-in ballots are just more amenable to shit going wrong. Like, for example, there's bound to be some dead people voting. Like at this Giuliani press conference, they had what's his name, Corey Lewandowski, talk about somebody who died on October 22nd. Ballot arrived at the house on October 25th, and it got returned. Well, that can happen a lot of ways. It could be a spouse saying, "I know who she would have voted for," and sending it in. Right. But it's bad. If you send out millions and tens of millions or hundreds of millions of mail-in ballots, there's bound to be a non-trivial number of dead people who vote one way or the other. And there's other shit that could go wrong. Some people, forget to put in the inner envelope. You got a naked ballot problem. So maybe I guess part of the plan is that, look, any problems about mail-in ballots that we can get actually documented, if we can get them to look into these ballots and find things that went wrong, that inherently works against the Democrats because they have more mail-in ballots, right?
Well, they want the harvesting. So far, they've dominated harvesting, although the one guy who was convicted of it was a Republican. But, both sides could play that game. It just looses the forces of corruption on the land. And, the Democrats are currently ahead now. And they've been promoting because they think it will increase the participation in elections. Yes. So I just don't see how you can have, as you say, you can't have mail-in ballots where you actually go to a post office, go to a postal box, because without harvesting, because nobody knows if somebody comes and puts 100 ballots in the postal box.
Yeah.
So even if you make harvesting illegal, who's really going to enforce that? It's unenforceable. And in other countries have banned mail-in voting. There was an article I read that in a lot of countries they've just decided it's too prone to corruption. So I say after the pandemic is over, let's get rid of the mail-in balloting. There was one of my readers who goes under the name Atlanta Liberal. His name is Ragsdale, I think, whose father had died, and he wrote me saying, "My father died. He lived here, and a month or 2 months after he died, or however long it was, he's listed as voting, but the election was after he died, and so he immediately got all these things. So, you're lying. You're a bot. You're this is bullshit." And then he said, no, he convinced all these people that no, he's really for real. And he actually sent a note to the LA registrar, and the LA registrar sent back an explanation saying, "Oh, yes, your father's ballot was voted by somebody else at the address, but they didn't vote any other ballots, so it was okay." And you go, wait a minute, there's supposed to be a signature requirement. The whole point is that you can't vote twice because of the signature requirement. You can't vote other people. And did the guy forge the dead man's name, or did the guy sign his own name and nobody checked? But that the registrar would think this was an adequate answer. So, he only, no harm, no foul.
I think
it's insane.
I heard an anecdote very much like this on the Bannon podcast. Mickey, how long's it been since you saw a cute dog? Milo, come here.
That's pretty damn cute.
Milo is very special.
That's very cute, but no, I haven't seen a cute dog in a long time.
Milo is like such a love sponge.
He's hamming it up now, yeah.
No, he's not. He's terrified. Milo, it's okay, buddy. But the thing about I've been having profound thoughts about dogs lately. I mean, it's just...
You realize that you are the same as dogs? You both respond to stimuli?
That's one of many things we have in common. Plus, we both have consciousness. It's like something to be us. It's like something to be Milo. And the final thing is we both wonder about that often. We both think about the mind-body problem, right, Milo? Okay.
You realized you were at one with a lizard, I remember. So if you can be at one with a lizard, you can certainly be at one with Milo.
It took a meditation retreat for me to feel that, but I can feel that with a dog at any point. So you want to hear more comments from patrons?
Sure. Excuse me.
Well, should we get back into this thing? Larry C. graciously, who I guess I had taken issue with over the kind of Charlie Hebdo related stuff. My point was, hey, I can both think that the people who beheaded the teacher should be punished and are culpable morally, and think that I can continue to criticize the teacher for having paraded that Muhammad cartoon in front of the class in the first place. And he says, but to spend 10 seconds condemning the former and several minutes discussing the latter, I just want to emphasize, I mean, in general, as Larry C. very gracious here, but I just think it's important. I mean, imagine like this original guy who published the Muhammad cartoon in the Danish newspaper, who kind of started all this. And there were riots, and then Charlie Hebdo picked up the cause. And I'm just thinking, like, suppose that guy had never done that. Like, wouldn't that be okay? Wouldn't we have saved ourselves a lot of trouble? There's people who'd still be alive, who aren't alive. And I don't know. Do we really? Maybe I'm old fashioned. I don't know.
You spend more time on the second thing because it's the more interesting question. Everybody knows it's wrong to behead somebody. The question of what the guy who was beheaded did wrong is intrinsically more complicated, so you spend more time on it.
Yeah, I guess there's that. It's related to my annoyance with the movie The Aristocrats and the whole idea that transgression is inherently good, which was part of the idea behind the Charlie Hebdo thing. But anyway, okay. Thank you for your gracious response, Larry C. Let's see. Oh, I got some compliments on my country and western singing. I'm just saying, more than one patron. Okay.
You were okay. I noticed that too. You weren't that bad.
Should that become a thing for like the $100 Patreon level where I sing country western songs?
You also didn't sing through your nose, which is the usual cheap way to sing like a country and western singer.
Well, that's because I talk through my nose naturally. I don't have to try.
Okay.
I have a nasal.
Okay.
I got that nasal thing.
You can be the front man of my band before you go off and become a Hindu chanter.
What's your band going to be called? The Parrot Room?
I think it was God's Broken Toys.
Well,
that's a good band name.
It ranks up there with Blue Oyster Cult.
Or it's
GBT.
It's better than Rancid Feast of Condemnation.
I'm going to a GBT concert.
Grim Era of... There was a debate on the web of whether Kids in Cages was a good band name.
Yeah, I don't think that would be welcome.
There is Kids in Cages news.
Great.
We can talk about.
Oh, well, I thought you meant there's like a news site called that. Oh, go ahead. Give me the Kids in Cages news.
There are two issues. There's the kids in the cages and the separated families. The kids in the cages was not such a scandal. It was in an attempt to improve conditions. They found these big spaces and they divided them using these chain link fences to keep like the lusty teenage boys away from the 11-year-old girls. And the chains were good because you could see through them. A guard couldn't beat up and abuse somebody without everybody seeing, so it made everybody on their best behavior. And it's better than a wall, okay? It's better than what they originally had, which is people crammed in cement block rooms that were fetid and horrible. So it was an improvement, okay? And Obama started it, okay? So most of the iconic pictures you see are from the Obama era. And most people think Biden is not going to be able to end that. And it's not such a big deal.
You predicted kids in cages under Biden.
They do look like dog kennels, so that people sort of feel disrespected when they're assigned to them. It would be good to get rid of them.
Well, plus you don't have any privacy, right? Isn't that a downside?
Yeah, I think that's a downside. But it would be good to get something even better. But they tried to build like bunks and bungalows, and they were sued about that too. So the ACLU just doesn't want anybody held anywhere. They want them all released. So they don't want you to build a humane holding facility. Then the second thing is the separation of mothers, and mainly mothers, but parents from their kids, which I think was legal, but was cruel and probably, I would say it was immoral. It was way too much deterrence for the crime. And the kids, there are like 450 or 500 or 600 kids from the early pilot program, not from the main one, who have not, their parents allegedly haven't been reunited. And the ASLU makes a big deal of this, but think about it. If you're a mother in Guatemala, you know that you don't have your kid, right? You know your kid was taken from you and is somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
If you went to the U.S. Embassy, you would get your kid back, right? The reason, as the Homeland Security people say, they contact the parents would rather have the kid be in the United States. Usually it's with relatives. They probably are in telephonic communication with the kid. They know the kid's not going to be harmed, and they want to reunite with the kid back in the States. They don't want the kid. The whole point of the exercise was to get into the United States. So if it's 50% successful and one of them gets in the United States, and maybe can be the way of getting both in, they're going to take that chance as opposed to getting back to point zero with the kid sent back home. So it's a much more complicated situation the ACLU lets on. It's not that they can't find these kids. It's that a lot of the parents want to leave the kids in the United States in the hope that they will then be given the right to rejoin them there. And there's a debate in the Biden camp now whether to do that. And it was interesting that Biden balked at doing that. The camp they would have not so far said the parent can rejoin the kid. They're holding out maybe the kid has to go home to be with the parent. And it's interesting because it's Biden telling the immigration lobby no. And so that is hopeful. Yet I still tend to think there's going to be a big surge in migration because the basic signal Biden is going to send is it's okay if you come, so people will come, and then he's going to have to crack down.
But I do wonder if the surprising amount of the Hispanic vote that went to Trump will influence how Biden positions himself in this debate and take a little wind out of the sails of, the kind of more liberal part of the immigration debate in Democratic Party.
That could happen. But in general, I think if like hundreds of thousands of people start massing on the border and getting in, Biden will have to do something. I think.
Yeah.
I don't think maybe he'll have the balls to say, okay, you can all come in. I tend to think he's a more conservative politician than that.
Okay. So Mickey.
Anyway, that's my update.
Alam Gazaw, Gizaw, or Alam, Alem. Do you know how to pronounce that word?
No.
A patron says, can't believe that it's been, Alam remembers the 5-year anniversary of Blogging Heads back when the site was all green. Can't believe it's been 15 years, which it's been now. And writes, if you had the Parrot room for 15 years, Mickey would have had a bigger apartment. Now, am I being too sensitive to take that as a comment on my failure to turn Blogging Heads into a thriving enterprise, Mickey? Because you know what's funny? Greg Dingle did mention to me the idea of crowdfunding very early in Blogging Heads.
Huh.
There are definitely a ton of people who would have taken where we were at that point in 2007, say, and turned it into a huge thing.
Well, but you didn't want to do that. The main way you didn't capitalize on it the way P.D. Barnum would is we had this video capability early on, and it provided a rich audio visual experience, and you didn't just market it as a podcast and say forget the video. And then podcasts became hot, and it became clear that that's where the market was going.
You mean dropping the video was a mistake? I think you're nuts. You mean not dropping the video was a mistake?
Not dropping the video.
I think you're crazy.
Don't even pretend that the video is there.
Oh,
the video is like the animal menu at In-N-Out Burger. It's there for the cognoscenti.
So this is why Joe Rogan has no audience, because he made the mistake of emphasizing video?
Does Joe Rogan emphasize video? I didn't know that.
Oh, totally. Look, here's the thing.
That's where my case falls completely to the ground.
Yeah, because here's the thing. We do more audio downloads than video streams, but when something goes viral, it goes viral on via video on YouTube. It's very hard for an individual audio podcast to go viral. Maybe it's getting easier, but it's like, I mean, like this maybe has happened on, it's happened on a small scale to some things I've done, but God, the Glenn show on Blogging Heads, one of those will catch on and suddenly it's got 100,000 views in a week.
Off a video?
Yeah, on video alone.
Huh. Because my sense is that like podcasts are incredibly hot and all my friends are listening to them. And
well, they are, but a number of podcasts do have a video dimension. And I think one reason yeah.
No, they happen to have video too, but that's not what they're sold as. But go ahead, sorry.
But they give us real juice. And no, I don't think that was anyway. I'm not the type. I'm not the type to have succeeded at that kind of thing.
And as we know, I have a big apartment.
Yeah. Yeah.
Couldn't get any bigger.
Melinda says that contrary to our assessment. What? It
would be hard to police an apartment that was any bigger. Go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, it's. Where was I?
That was viral.
That's a viral one. Well, speaking of which, okay, so first, this is related. This is a good segue that you just gave me. First, Melinda says that she thought, contrary to our assessment of last regular podcast, last week's, it did not suck. I encourage her to say that again because I think it did suck this week too. But anyway, really? She says, but yeah, Eraserhead hair takes the Parrot room to another level. And then David Hendrickson says, you should make a 30-second clip of Bob's Eraserhead hair and put it on Twitter. The masses would find it irresistible. Bob could become a meme. Patrons would multiply.
He's right. You should. The Eraserhead hair was incredible. You should have.
But there are some things that I'm not willing to do. This gets back to why I didn't succeed in the first place. No,
you'd be famous. You'd be like one of those characters from The Office.
Jeffrey Toobin is famous, more famous than ever, Mickey.
Well, that video would go viral too. If we had that video, it would go viral too.
Hey, we should stage a moment like that. Would you do the honors for us? Did we?
Yeah, with my parrot, remember?
Oh, yeah.
So, there you go.
And then Danny Kahn offers an etymology of the word wussy, since I had asked for that. But I can't share that on a family show.
Really? It has a dirty...
Well, I had asked whether it was related to the word you inadvisedly uttered. And he says, yes, it's wimp plus that word. This sounds to me like hand waving. I'd like to see some documentation, Danny. Finally, listen, this just made my day. Suzette writes, I was curious about this Leon Wieseltier dude who was mentioned, so I sat through an interview with him on a podcast. He was somewhat creepy when talking about mentor-mentee relationships, but mainly he was really, really boring. He had no good stories or insights, zero charm, and wasn't funny. The interviewer seemed as bored as I was. Plus, his lame new magazine has 400 pages. Prediction. The magazine is DOA, and Bob will be able to gloat. This reminds me...
Were you the interviewer?
No, but although, as I told you, Leon's on Blogging Heads. Has that aired yet? With Glenn, and that'll do wonders for his thing because Glenn's show is like huge. Anyway,
Leon's might be on his best behavior in a bad way. He's quite funny. He has hundreds of great stories, some of which I've been dining out on for years, and he has interesting things to say. He just says them in a very Baroque fashion sometimes.
Leon is fun. He's the one who told me that this isn't about the hunting story. Did we ever tell that joke?
No.
Let's save it.
I think it's become the iconic joke that we don't tell.
But I this reminds me, one of my favorite days ever. I was in Washington. This is like 25 years ago. And I went to a public course to play golf. When you play golf on a municipal course, you just kind of find, whoever is there you play with. It's not like a country club where you schedule a tee time with like two friends and anyway, you can, but you just usually play with whoever there. And there was some lawyer guy. And when he found out I worked for the New Republic, he's like, oh, is that where Leon Wieseltier guy writes? And I said, yeah. And he said, Man, his writing, I can't understand it. It's like so bad. And he talked about that like the whole day. I felt I had died and gone to heaven. It was just, it was so wonderful.
And did he let you beat him too? No.
I don't remember.
Well, Leon is not boring. It's too bad if he had a boring interview. You shouldn't have a boring interview.
Well,
with Leon.
he's ostentatious. He can be grating in his pretentiousness.
Like many of us, he recognized that there's a difference between his public personality and his private personality. But that's what the Parrot Room, that fiction is what the Parrot Room pierces.
He certainly can be funny. He was funny in editorial meetings.
I always thought the show should be Leon After Dark. And he should be smoking and the whole room should be filled with smoke and he should just tell dirty stories with occasional bits of substance from 1 to 2 in the morning. But that's very similar to the Parrot Room. It's just we're not as funny as he is.
They could film it in his office. Remember his New Republic office? It had a canister of whatever liquor that was.
Maker's Mark, I believe.
Had a prominent copy of this book, Male Fantasies.
Didn't see that one.
I always assumed he used that as a conversation starter. It had the Gothic type. It's like a well-known.
The story of O.
Yeah, I don't know.
At the time I was trying to pick up women using AIDS as a conversation starter. That didn't go too well.
Mickey.
AIDS was in the news. That was the topic. That was like, it was like the myth of heterosexual AIDS.
Well, that was a whole controversy at the New Republic, which we probably needn't revisit. So, what do we have other things to say? How long we've been doing this? Hour and 21. Oh,
I've run through all my topics except one that's too boring to even bring up. So what the hell?
No, don't underestimate it. Let's hear it.
I said with Biden the swamp is back, and various people said no, the swamp never went away. And my line is, yes, it did, because even if you assume the swamp is based on the revolving door and people go in and out of government and then they lobby their former friends at government and they put their people in government knowing they're going to hire them back, and it's all a big conspiracy to make money off the public. And I claim that Trump was so weird that it's like, when you move the food, that the ants have built their whole ecosystem around getting this thing of food. If you move it to a different location, it takes a while for the ants to figure out where the food is to reorganize. And Trump was that, moving the ants' cheese. And it took a while for the Washington lobbyists to realize, oh, wait, we have to go to Mar-a-Lago and have to actually slip thousands of dollars of bills into the maitre d's head in order to have influence in the Trump administration.
Well, some people
this
figured
is a
it
new
out.
one.
Some people figured it out.
But it
right
wasn't
away.
the same people in the swamp. I mean, they were like,
no, it was like this Chinese woman.
Right.
I mean, I think she had both Chinese and American citizenship, but she made money by convincing rich Chinese people that she had proximity to Trump, and she joined Mar-a-Lago and did. But she also did she did other stuff. She bought one of his properties she found ways to get money to him beyond being in Mar-a-Lago.
But so 1,000 people figured out Mar-a-Lago. 100,000 people in Washington found that their traditional ways of influencing the White House didn't work anymore. Okay? So that's what I meant by the swamp is back. They will find that their traditional ways of influencing now work again.
Yeah, and I gotta say, I would love to know more about the actual Hunter Biden story. I mean, I don't think any of the extreme claims are true, but I mean, it does seem like both Hunter and James were capitalizing on the name for quite a while. And
well, sure, I can't believe that all reporters have given up on this.
Well, it's a good question. Will you see more about that? I mean, one thing about it is now that's an interesting question, is how long will coverage of the Biden administration be shaped by resistance mentality? Like, how long will they think he's the anti-Trump, he's the good guy? I don't think it'll last all that long. But again, it kind of depends on what Trump does.
Yeah.
It's kind of like right now, as long as Trump continues to be the asshole we hate as he's being, you're going to see some pretty damn sympathetic coverage of Biden.
But the left will also come to be pissed at Biden, and the sort of facts on the ground are if Biden is too old or leaves office, somebody to his left will take power. Mm-hmm. So the left has reason to try to undermine Biden. So he may get it from both sides. I think the honeymoon on Biden will end pretty quickly. I think it'll become pretty clear early on that his administration isn't all that competent, that he's not very inspiring. His positions aren't all that powerful. He can be pushed around. I just he'll make some mistakes. I think the honeymoon will end, but that doesn't mean the press will stop covering for him.
No, but again, I mean, I think for a while, what's refreshing about the administration will seem refreshing just because being an ordinary administration will seem so refreshing after Trump in certain ways. That'll last a while. But again, I think it depends largely on what Trump does. If Trump continues to attack Biden, the press will continue to cover for him, I think, assuming people pay attention to Trump. And that's another question. I recommend we don't. When
the question is, does Trump realize this and stop doing it? No. The answer is no.
No, because he doesn't care. I mean, he doesn't care if he helps Biden. He just wants to be in the news.
Yeah.
By the way, it's a good look you got going now. The Rembrandt thing is looking better than ever. This is a good look. You look way better than I do. You look so mysterious and dark.
This is a traditional thing resorted to by people who have receding hairlines because you can't really quite see where the hairline is. Or maybe you can, but anyway. Thank you. It's not as good as your eraser head hair, which you could make $1 million off it. In fact, I could just go and capture it. I could just go and do it, It was really completely crazy. Have you cut it since then?
No.
Okay.
I just haven't washed it in about 3 years.
I don't know if I have this fortitude to take it.
But I'm not stopping until I'm like full on Bannon, and I'm not there. That looks so bad. I'm not stopping. My hair is going to grow until I am like Steve Bannon. And in fact, I'm willing to gain however much weight is required to really totally adopt the look because it's working for him. And I want to be there. That's the zone I want to be in.
And the obvious candidate to play him in the movie is dead. So
Philip Seymour Hoffman?
Yes. So
that was good. Don't you think that was a good guess?
That was a good guess. But so you'd be up for the role, I think.
But I'm not sure Philip Seymour Hoffman is quite robust enough. Who would it be?
He goes up and he goes down. So
yeah,
he's robust if you want him.
No, but I mean,
not anymore.
Anyway, yeah. Well, we'll see. Look, I'm happy that the betting odds. Let me check on those. Now have what? That's about 7-8%, giving Trump a 7-8% chance of being president second term. That's still unsettlingly high.
I don't understand where that 7 or 8% comes from. It's a mystery to me.
Well, I'll tell you, the betting markets were righter than Nate Silver on the election itself. I mean, of course, they were both right. They gave him more than 50%, but the betting markets were like, I mean, given the fact that we now know that shifting around 90,000 votes in 3 states would have won it for Trump, it's crazy to say that the chances were actually 89%. In addition to the fact that we know that the specific polls on which the 89% estimate was based were just wrong. They just understated Trump's support. So the betting markets were righter than the polls before.
But I still think markets are wrong all the time. The market goes up and down on the latest stimulus deal news. Usually
financial
wildly
markets are a little different, but I think betting markets have more wisdom than people appreciate. I do.
They have more wisdom than financial markets? There's a good piece in that.
Well, but with financial markets, there are just so many different things that they can be telling you. And there can be a speculative component, like people betting not on what they think the economy is going to do, but what they think
Yeah.
which can happen with betting markets, but not so much, I think.
Like
anyway,
they think the economy is going to go down so much that the Fed is going to intervene and it's going to go back up, so they go long. Yeah, okay, makes sense.
yeah, that's the weird thing is that, like, I wrote a Slate piece on this once about how, like, when the Fed chief testifies in front of Congress, and if they give a hint that there's going to be stimulus, the market goes wild. Now, if you really trusted the judgment of the Fed chief, you might say, like, well, if he says we need stimulus, that means the economy's headed. It's like celebrating when you go to a doctor and they say you need chemotherapy. Right. Wait, no, that's bad news.
Right.
Anyway, so should we call it a thing? I think I just posted this newsletter that.
What's it about?
It's the first of our report cards on.
Oh, it's Tony Blinken.
Progressive realism report card on Tony Blinken.
That's hot. You should publicize that.
That's what I need to go do, I guess. That's what I hate about the modern world is it's not enough to write stuff. You got to be the promoter.
Right.
Do you remember, Mickey, the days when you wrote stuff and the magazine's job was to promote it and that was it?
Yeah, but it was always better if you did it yourself.
No, you couldn't do it yourself. What, in the 80s and in the 90s? You couldn't do it yourself.
Yes, you could.
What, that's why you went to parties? You went to parties to do it?
No, I just remember it said Kinsley saying, Mickey, okay, you can spend half a day promoting this piece. It meant sending it to columnists and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, but before email.
Via snail mail.
Before email. Via snail mail?
I forget what I did, but you found columnists who you thought would be sympathetic and made sure they'd read it.
Yeah, but that was for people like you who went to cocktail parties.
It's a good question. It had nothing to do with cocktail parties. Anyway,
the burden has definitely shifted more toward the journalist. I mean, periodicals hire journalists because of their Twitter feeds, because they are good self-promoters. That didn't used to happen.
Right.
Okay.
It's worse than that. If you want to apply to like Soho House or some hoity-toity club, it's all about your Instagram account. You get in if you have enough Instagram followers. You don't get in if you don't.
Is that true?
Shocking. I'm probably exaggerating a bit, but
I have no Instagram followers.
Well, you're not getting into Soho House.
That's possible.
It's a bastion of social equality. You're missing out on a lot. Okay.
Well, as Ronald Reagan used to say, well. So I guess that's it. What does the Parrot have to say, Mickey?
Eraserhead.
Is that this week's shibboleth?
I think so.
Eraserhead is this week's shibboleth. Okay, if you said so. All right. So, now we'll go to the room where we rate our Parrot Room performance, having used the Parrot Room to rate. And that's a really
but you're, even in the third room, you're not going to tell me the alarming childhood incident that you wouldn't tell me here.
Wait, what alarming childhood incident?
I forget. It was something had a scarring effect on you. You said, but I won't talk about it here.
Well, one thing I said I wouldn't tell you was why that song Baba Hanuman means so much to me.
Yeah,
well, it wasn't scarring at all. I'll tell you.
Okay.
It's super secret though.
Okay. Well, as Graydon Carter says, there's 7 rooms, Bob. Parrot Room's only the second room. So we have 7 rooms, 5 rooms worth to go. So.
Okay. Well, let's go to the third and see who else is there.
Okay.
See you next time.
See ya. Yep.